Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're looking to write Java code that's cleaner, way smarter, and just more powerful, you are in exactly the right spot. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fundamental concepts in all of programming, loops. So let's dive right in. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been there just copying and pasting the same line of code again and again, maybe just changing a tiny little number each time? Ugh, it's so tedious, right? It's messy, and honestly, it's a huge red flag that there's a much, much better way to get the job done. And that right there is where loops come in. They are the elegant, powerful solution to all that repetition. Instead of writing the same code over and over, you just write it once, and then you tell Java how many times to run it or under what condition to keep running it. It is an absolute game changer for your efficiency. I want you to think of what we're about to cover as a brand new toolkit for your programming utility belt. These are the absolute essential tools for handling repetition and really taking control of your code's flow. So, inside this toolkit, we've got three main tools we're going to get a handle on today: the for loop, the Foreach loop, and the while loop. Now, each one has a very specific job, and knowing which one to grab is the real key. First up, we've got the for loop. I like to call this one the counter, and for a good reason. It's absolutely perfect for those times when you know exactly how many times you need to do something. 5 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. The for loop is your go-to. You see, a for loop is all about control. You get to set the start point, the end point, and how it gets there. That means it runs your code a very specific, totally predetermined number of times. No guesswork, just pure, predictable execution. Okay, so let's break this down. The syntax looks a little busy, but it's really 3 simple parts. First, you've got int I equals 1. That's the initialization. We're creating a little counter variable, I, and starting it at 1. Next up, I less than or equal to 5. That's our condition. The loop is going to keep running as long as this statement is true. And finally, we have I++. That's the update. It just adds 1 to I after every single pass. And here you can see exactly how that plays out. The loop kicks off, I is 1, so it prints iteration 1. Then it runs the update, so I becomes 2. It checks the condition, is 2 less than or equal to 5? Yep, so it prints again. And this just continues all the way up to 5. And hey, here's a quick pro tip for you. That I less than or equal to 5 part is crucial. A super common bug is to write I less than 5, which would actually stop at 4. That's a classic off by 1 error you really want to watch out for. All right, let's grab the next tool from our kit. This is the for each loop. And I call this one the Explorer. Why? Because it's designed to effortlessly travel through every single item in a list, like an array or some other collection. You know, the real beauty of the for each loop is just how simple it is. You don't have to set up a counter, you don't have to manage a condition. You just point it at a bunch of items and it automatically visits every single one from the first to the very last. It basically does all the heavy lifting for you. Just look at how clean and readable that syntax is. After we set up our array of fruits, the loop basically reads like plain English. For each string, which we'll call fruit, that you find inside the fruits array, just print it out. With every pass, that fruit variable automatically gets the next item. Now, there is a trade-off here, and it's an important one. With this simplicity, you don't know the index or the position of the item. So if you need to know where you are in the list, that classic for loop is still your better bet. And the result is, well, it's exactly what you'd expect. The loop grabs apple, prints it, then it moves on, grabs banana, prints that, finally it gets cherry, prints it, and once there's nothing left to explore, the loop is done. That's it. Super clean, super simple. Okay, time for our final tool. This is the while loop, or as I like to call it, the guardian. This loop is like a sentry. It stands guard and constantly checks if a specific condition is true. And as long as it is, it lets the code inside run again and again. So when do you use this? You'll want to grab a while loop when you don't know how many times you need to loop ahead of time. You know, maybe you're waiting for a user to type something or waiting for a temperature sensor to hit a certain value. This loop will just keep doing its job as long as the condition it's guarding stays true. Let's walk through this example. We start a count variable at 1. The loop's condition is right there in the parentheses, while count less than or equal to 5. So before every single run, it checks, is count less than or equal to 5? If the answer is yes, it runs the code inside. But you have to pay close attention to that count plus plus at the end. Seriously, this is critical. If you forget that line, Count would always be 1, the condition would always be true, and congratulations, you've just created an infinite loop that will crash your program. And here's how that flows in practice. It checks the count, it's 1, which is less than 5, so the condition is true. It prints count 1. Then it increments count to 2. It checks again, prints, increments, and it does this all the way until count becomes 6. At that moment, the Guardian takes a look, sees that the condition is finally false, and boom, the loop is done. All right, so we've got our 3 tools, the counter, the explorer, and the Guardian. Now comes the most important part, knowing when to use each one. Because choosing the right loop for the job, that's what really separates good code from great code. So this is the question, right? The one we all ask ourselves when we're coding. Do I need a counter? Am I just exploring a list? Or am I standing guard, waiting for some condition to change? Here's the simple breakdown. If there is one thing you take away from all this, let it be this slide. Use the for loop, our counter, when you know the exact number of times you need to repeat. Use the Foreach loop, our explorer, when you just need to visit every single item in a collection, no fuss. And grab the while loop, the Guardian, when you have to keep going as long as some condition stays true. Look, at the end of the day, these tools aren't just about making your code work. They're about making it run efficiently, and just as important, making it clean and readable for yourself and for anyone else who has to look at it. Mastering loops isn't just a small thing. It's a massive step toward mastering your craft as a developer. So you've got the toolkit down, you're feeling good, but what happens when things get really complex? What happens when you take one of these tools and put it inside another one? Well, that's a whole other story, and it's where the real magic begins. Keep exploring.